So when I graduated with my undergrad degree, which was an honours major in microbiology, I set out to look for a job, and basically, as with any other undergraduate, I just wanted to make some cash and travel the world. But what ended up happening was I got that job, and the company was looking at the association between breast cancer and scalp hair, which to me was a really fascinating idea, to be able to detect a disease that's so prevalent through something as simple as hair. So I was there and I made a discovery with my colleague as to the biological mechanism behind what we were looking at. And after that, we decided, okay, look, we've got to do more with this. It has so much value and potential. It's a eureka moment in science, but it has the potential to impact lots of lives around the world. So for me, that was the key motivator to pursue the PhD. I think the key is to focus on a specific set of questions. In science, you can tend to get really carried away with carrying out different experiments and which is a wonderful thing, don't get me wrong, but I was working on a very specific purpose, and that was to find a foundation for a breast cancer test. And that meant I had to stick to the key questions. The other thing is resilience. Data is data. It's the most honest thing you're going to get, and it doesn't always go your way. So you have to be okay with that. And as you do during PhDs and in many research projects, once you fail something or it doesn't work out the way you think it should, you've got to step outside the box and look at it again and iterate and try again, keep trying. The writing side. So I'm a really organised freak, I guess you could say. I tried to write as I was going, especially things like methods, and keep them in a place that, that was easy to access. But there is always that part at the end where you've got to really motivate yourself to write it up. And to be quite honest, there were certain things that, for me, I didn't feel were big successes in my PhD, but I still had to write them up because it's an honest story of what you've done over the last 3 or 4 years. And it's not about the results, to be honest. It's about the journey and what you've learnt along the way. And that's what I felt was the biggest accomplishment from my PhD, writing that up. And that takes a lot of mental energy. So before I started my PhD, I had made that discovery, which is what pushed me to pursue the PhD. So I was already very driven to do that. I didn't know where I would end up after it, but I'd hoped that this would become a foundation of something that would become the company that is BKL Diagnostics today. So my drive stemmed from pushing myself to be a really good research scientist, but then looking into the future and understanding that perhaps I'll need to do more than just research to get this out of the lab. So I had to look at the bigger picture and the bigger vision. And that changed during the course of my PhD. I understood. So once I started getting data that gave me potential to say this could have some legs, I knew that I then started progressing, and taking up other roles within BKL, because it is a startup, and it's a very tiny team, which meant I had a multifaceted role. So I was taking on all sorts of other things and learning and multi-skilling myself so that by the end, I was in good stead. So it did change over time. So research scientist, senior scientific officer, and then today I'm chief scientist. And that's where I want to be. And I now look towards the future, which would be CEO or progressing towards those sorts of roles. So there are so many skills we learn during a PhD. Some of the main ones are managing a really, really big workload and managing your time, which is super important not only during a PhD but in real world, in all aspects of life. But when you're running a business, especially in the scientific sense, you have very strict deadlines in industry that just can't be pushed back sometimes. So that is what my PhD really, really equipped me for. The other thing is collaborations. One of the things that I did during my PhD was collaborate, and I think that's a really important skill set to have even in business. And I did my work at Macquarie University during my PhD with Melbourne University. And so that was a really great collaboration with some experts in a specific field. And it was a wonderful experience. And the world is all about collaboration, especially in STEM, and especially when you're trying to build a product to bring to market. You need engineers, statisticians, software engineers, all those sorts of people. So collaboration is a key part of that too. Always, because your technology is an evolving process. So I may not be doing it hands-on at the bench myself, but I collaborate with people, or I have a team, I have a senior scientist, people that help me to design experiments, and we work together to accomplish the common goal. For me, that's the essence of having a biotech company and doing science. It doesn't change when you come into this space. It's just that the environment is different and the way you do it might be a little bit more aggressive. For me, the biggest thing is someone who is multi-skilled. So I keep coming back to that because for me, you need to have at least an idea of what's out there in the world. You can easily get stuck in a little bubble and not know about how your research can impact someone. And the only way you're going to get an answer to that is if you get out there and speak to people. So if you have a really great idea, that's a research idea, you should actually go out and speak to either customers or end users or industry. If you door knock and speak to them, you'll be surprised at how much they want to hear from you because they need you. So my view is that I'd look for someone who has done that and shown that, and perhaps even networked outside of academic circles, because I think that's super important as well, being open-minded, really open-minded. So I wish I'd known how important it was to get out there and network and speak to people. I was quite reserved in terms of, oh, do I know what I'm doing? You're always a little bit, everyone's got a bit of imposter syndrome, or a little bit, especially in business, because I was a scientist by trade, so going out and networking with industry kind of scared me. So it was nerve-wracking, but it's one of those things I wish I'd pushed myself to do earlier and done a lot more of. I'm only beginning to learn how valuable it is, because you never know who you're standing next to in a room. You never know how they can help you, and people love to help. It sounds like a cliche, but if you're talking to the right person and they're inspired by what you're doing, they will do their best to help you. So for me, I'm still learning how important networking is. So in my particular case, it was quite simple, but I know it's not like that for everybody else, and that's purely because I'd set myself up to have that at the other end. So I think that's really important. Prior to my PhD though, before I embarked on that, I actually helped found BCal Diagnostics in 2010. And so I was 22 when that happened. And I had to make a very hard decision very early on to let go of my academic trail. And that was the most terrifying thing, because the first thing I thought was people are not going to think that I'm a real scientist, because I'm not doing the classic PhD, postdoc, doing it all the right way. But for me, the biggest motivation was that I had this fantastic idea and I want to see it grow. I want to give it a go. Doesn't matter if it fails or succeeds, but I need to give it my best shot. So that's what I decided to do. So the first thing is understanding intellectual property, because I understand publication in research is really, really important. And in the biotech community or medical research company-wise, it's still important to publish, but you really have to protect your IP if you're going to have a really good idea and go out there in the world. And that's just what industry like to see. So my advice is know what you're doing in terms of that, or get some advice from the translational research office at your university. And then think about the road ahead. So it is going to be challenging, it always is. A startup, they always say it's like a roller coaster, up and down, lots of chasms along the way. Resilience is key. So you need to understand that it's okay to fail, and let yourself understand that failure doesn't mean it's the end of the road. You can get back up. All you've got to do is learn from it really quickly and iterate really quickly. That's the key to a startup. Keep moving, keep going. Because if you've got a brilliant idea and it's starting here, it is a long road, but you can get there. And incubators, workshops, things that you can do to support yourself, mentors, all those sorts of things, make that burden to the destination a lot easier. So yeah, bring those people on board and have them surrounding you. The world needs brilliant ideas, and I'm a firm believer that science, technology, engineering and mathematics are the tools to make a difference in the world. If you want to make an impact, you've got a very powerful degree to do so. I think it's absolutely pivotal, and they know that too. The beauty of a degree in STEM any of the 4 topics, is that it's such a diverse set of skills. So you can apply that knowledge and those skills in so many different ways, and the different industries such as banking, mining, biotech, the whole lot, they all value those skill sets because they need people with that training and that way of thinking to come into their business and help them look from another point of view or see things from another point of view. So this idea that PhD students just end up in one specific focused area, which is the research that they've done, is completely untrue, because it is a complete spectrum of white to black and a whole lot of grey in between. And there are so many pockets and avenues where you fit in with those skills and can help a diverse set of businesses. And I can think of lots of different examples. My friends are in science communications, in MSL roles, some are still in the lab. I'm doing a startup biotech. People end up in all sorts of places. So it's a wonderful variety that is offered to you with a degree like that.